Hello, I'm back.
Hi again.
Sorry about that. There you go. So I think we've got a few people we're still waiting for. So we'll just wait for another 60 seconds or so and then we'll get started.
Perfect.
So if you want to start introducing yourself in the chat box, if you can't see the chat box, you can just click on where it says more. You'll have a tab with various options, and under more there's a chat option, and if you click on that you can access the chat box, and then you can actually see what we're typing, what questions we share, and what other participants are sharing as well. So it'd be great to hear who you are, where you're calling in from, and what social enterprise you work with or for.
And also, if the chat box is covering half the screen, you can pick it up and move it to the side as well.
Okay, so we have a good few people on the call. So if you would like to just put into the chat box where you're calling in from and what social enterprise you're calling in from. If you've never been on a webinar before, please don't worry. You know, this is a great way to interact with people, and we'll kind of go through it as we talk through. If you are having problems, then and you can't find the charts, then you can email us. We can probably check out our emails as well as we're on this, because we are multi-talented, aren't we, Annie? So I'll
supposedly
email me if you're struggling finding the chat box or something. We can try and talk you through that.
Do you want to pop your email up in the box as well then, Kat?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then we'll get started. So I can see a few more people are joining on, which is fantastic. So there's my email address if you want to email me any questions as well, if you can't find the chat box. So welcome, Fiona. It's great to have, we've got two of you and Becky from the platform in Brighton. That's fantastic. I'm sure you know our friend Sarah there as well, so it's great to have you here. Really welcome. Anybody else, if you want to add in the chat box your name, where you're calling in from, and what social enterprise you're with or representing, that'd be great. I'm going to get started, Annie, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Hi to Sophie as well, who's just come in. So just reading the chat box where everyone's from. So welcome, and over to you, Kat.
Brilliant, thanks, Annie. So welcome everybody to today's webinar, Social Enterprise Business Connect webinar with myself and Annie. We're really pleased to have you here, and we know people will join throughout the webinar as well. So we look forward to that. And if you're actually watching this on replay, because we will send this out, then you might want to fast forward this bit of introduction, but that's fine. We're really pleased to have you on the replay as well. So just very quickly, as I've said, for those of you that have just joined, we will be using the chat box so that you can interact with us, ask your questions, and see the answers that we share as well with people. You can also obviously talk to others on the call in the chat box. So you can do that just by putting people's names. If you want to respond directly to people's messages, you can do that by putting their name first. And yeah, it'd be great to just know who's here, where you're calling from, and what social enterprise you're representing. So who are we? Oh, I can't seem to get the clicker to work. Oh, there we go. I'm Kat Lecoq, and I am the founder of Share Impact, and I work with social entrepreneurs, helping them to measure and communicate their social impact so that they can attract more customers and essentially more income. And I provide this through coaching, online courses and webinars. And Annie, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Annie Moon, and I work with successful business people and businesses who are wanting to do the good stuff but aren't quite sure how to do it. So I help them create their social impact project, ensuring that their efforts make a real lasting impact and difference, and also achieve a fantastic return on investment. Thanks, Kat.
Brilliant. So me and Annie met last year online through a Facebook group, and we realised we had a lot in common, and we decided to work together on this webinar. And we describe ourselves as two intrepid adventurers on a mission to improve the space between social entrepreneurship and businesses doing good. And we both want to see businesses having a greater net positive impact, both on communities and on the environment. And we've chosen to collaborate both on this webinar and future webinars by bringing our different expertise and perspectives to how we build effective partnerships and sales with corporates, both from our own experiences of doing this now and myself previously with my previous social enterprise as well. And later in the year, we haven't set a date yet, but we'll also be doing a webinar flipping this content really for corporates and big businesses. So we'll be inviting representatives from corporates and businesses in our network to come along so we can kind of educate them about the different social enterprises that exist, different ways that they can work with social enterprises and support them. So if you'd like to be on that webinar, we'll send you all the information and stuff, and it would be great to have some social entrepreneurs in that call as well. So who is this webinar for, and what are we going to cover? And hopefully you're all social entrepreneurs or interested in what social entrepreneurship is. And this webinar is for social entrepreneurs who are really thinking about how they sell their programs, products or services to corporates, or potentially partnering with them in different ways on projects. So we're really interested to know what really brought you here today. So if in the chat box you can just say what your interest is in this topic. So do you have something you're looking to sell or partner with corporates on? Do you have a particular project that you're looking for a different income stream on? What is it that kind of attracted you to this webinar? So if you can type that in the chat box. And also, are you already working with any corporates? Have you got partnerships in place? Do you already sell your products or services to big business? That would also be really interesting. So as you write that, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my background as a social entrepreneur. So I said before that I now run Share Impact, which is my current business, but I'm also on the board and previously ran with my best friend Jen Bourne, Solutions for the Planet. Now, Solutions for the Planet runs an education programme in secondary schools focused on science, technology, engineering and maths, with also sustainability education that's focused to it. We inherited this programme 5 years ago. We developed it a lot since then. But when we got this programme, it was previously in a charity, but we needed to really redesign the business strategy of the organisation and think about how we're going to make it sustainable and financially sustainable as well. So we created a social enterprise model where we sold the programme and our services to businesses in the energy, utility and construction sectors. We had no experience of working with this sector previously, and we knew very few people in it and really had no idea where to start. But we were really passionate about what we were doing. We had a vision, and we were very clear about, or we developed a clarity over what we were offering them and what the benefits were for the business and what their needs were, and we matched these two things together. And so 4 or 5 years on, we've now got 70% trading income. We still have some grant funding, but we have 70% trading income, an income of over £150,000 a year. We only started with 14k. And we also have 4 members of our team. So we're able to deliver the programme across the UK. Across the UK, in England, and also just expanded into Scotland. And we sell our programme to corporates at about £9,000 a year over a 3-year contract period. So they sign up for a 3-year period. So that's my sort of story and expertise and experience of this area that I kind of wanted to share with you. It'd be great to see. I'm just going to go back through in the chat box, see what people are interested in getting out of this webinar. So
So Catherine's really interested. She works in sustainable travel and how she can work with corporates and what she can offer them.
Fantastic. That's really exciting, Catherine. Go on, Annie.
And Divya's interested in learning how to pitch what can be offered, which is ethical stationery, to corporate and big businesses. So
that's really interesting because we'll talk about that later. Yeah, definitely, in their supply chain and things. So that's really exciting. So anybody else that wants to add in what they're hoping to get out of this as well, that would be really helpful to see, and just useful to know what kind of things people are working on. There might even be opportunities for collaboration amongst yourselves. So keep that chat up. So moving on now then, we're hoping to be able to take you on this journey so that by the end of the webinar, you'll be clearer on what businesses are looking for. So those businesses, regardless of whether they're looking to work with social enterprises at the moment, what types of things might they need help with? We're going to cover some of those topics. We're going to explore whether your offer actually fits with that and how you could make it fit, if not. Explore how to communicate your program or initiative in a way that's compelling, help you consider ways to approach and sell to businesses, help you think about how you could create a partnership, and hopefully answer all your questions. And if we can't answer them live today, we'll certainly try and do that after the webinar. So do feel free to ask your questions throughout the webinar, and we will stop periodically to answer those, but we'll also have 15 minutes at the end to kind of cover those as well. So what I would really like you to think about though before we get started is that this is possible. I've got experience of it, and we'll talk about various case studies throughout the webinar as well that demonstrate how this is possible, and that it is possible for even the smallest social enterprises to pitch to really big corporates and win those contracts and sell your program or your product. I want you to recognise that you are a valid competitor in the market. It doesn't matter that you're a social enterprise. You should see yourself as equal partners, particularly if you're selling a product, but also likewise if you're selling a service. It's likely that you're in a particular niche and you have some real expertise that you can share and sell. Recognising that you've got something worth their investment and kind of changing that mindset that they're not doing you a favour, you're actually pitching something that's going to have real value in their business. And that being small is also powerful. So you can, often more easily adapt, be more flexible, develop really niche and bespoke things when you're small. And so it's not a weakness, and you shouldn't sort of ever define yourself as we're small, we can't deliver that, we're not at that capacity yet. And then finally, that although I think sponsorship and corporate sponsoring, say the third sector, charity sector, not-for-profit, is fantastic, and I'm never going to say that that's not a good thing. I do think it's brilliant, and it's a really valuable part of the whole industry. But as social entrepreneurs, for many of us, I think we need to stop thinking about sponsorship, and that working with corporate partners is a sponsorship model, and goes back to this thing about that we're a lesser entity for some reason, that they're going to do something philanthropic and positive for us. This is business engagement, and so I think you have to make that distinction in your own mind whether you want it to be a sponsorship model, and that's fine. If that's it, go that way. But what we're presenting today is a slightly different model of where you're actually selling something of really good value and positive that they see the added value and investment in as well. So hopefully that sort of sets the scene of where we're coming from. And I'm now going to pass over to Annie, who is going to take you through the different areas of a business, that you could maybe think about where your offer fits.
Okay, thanks very much, Kat. So what are businesses actually looking for? So corporates across the world are struggling with a variety of issues across their business. Some of these are things like help with recruitment, attracting talent and diversity, employee engagement, retention, skill development and well-being, customer perception and engagement, innovation, and the fact that the team might be spread across disparate bases. So that could be global or it could be local within one country, and also marketing. So your challenge as a social enterprise is to identify the issues that you could provide a solution to, or to understand what the business is that you want to work with, understand what their needs are, what they want, or what they're struggling with, so that you're able to speak to that directly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you around the departments of a generic organisation, which you can see on the slide there, and explore the areas that a business might A, need a solution to, or B, an opportunity for collaboration and partnership. So these two things are actually different, but at times they can also come together. For example, Solutions for the Planet, as Kat's already mentioned, sold its program to corporates, but through these partnerships that they developed, one particular one was with Tarmac. They were also able to gain experience from and support from Tarmac's marketing team, HR team, and sustainability departments, and they could then take that knowledge and that help forward into other partnerships and collaborations that they set up, people buying their services. So we're now going to move on to a case study. Thank you. So this is working with cancer, and it's a brilliant example of a cross-departmental case study, which gives us an introduction to quite a few of the departments in a business, and also perhaps what the benefits are that these departments may be looking for from a social enterprise. So this case study illustrates really well how an organisation can work cross-departmentally. So Working with Cancer is a social enterprise. It's run by Barbara Wilson. She herself is actually an ex-human resources director, and she's got a team of 10 freelancers, all of whom are either ex-human resources people or they've got experience from the business world. And all of them have survived cancer. And what Working with Cancer does is it helps people during and after cancer diagnosis, and it offers practical and psychological support. So Working with Cancer wanted to help people with cancer, or those who have survived cancer, to stay in work or to get back into work. However, this isn't necessarily how they would have sold it to the businesses, though. So they'll have recognised that a significant proportion of businesses would be affected by cancer, as 1 in 3 adults have it in their lifetimes. But they also knew that it's important for businesses to retain staff, support health and well-being, both for financial, practical, and also value-based reasons. So it's these needs and interests of the business, not those of the social enterprise, that they use to connect and communicate the benefits to the business about what they do. So I'm just going to touch on the services that they offer. So they offer one-to-one coaching for people with cancer, and they also work with carers of people with cancer. This is for between 6 months to a year, and if it's been sponsored by the employer, then they also offer advice and guidance to HR. They offer training workshops for the employer and workshops for people with cancer. And then they have a consultancy service for businesses. So this might be something like a policy review, looking, for example, at policies relating to return to work and also health and well-being. So examples of support needed in the workplace are managing the side effects through talking to your manager about issues relating to chemo brain. Chemo brain is actually the thinking and memory problems that can occur after cancer treatment. And the road while you have cancer and also in recovery is quite a journey, and it can take 12 months or more to recover from this and to readjust to working life. And you're dealing with both physical and emotional changes. So in terms of Working with Cancer, I'm just going to walk you through how they worked with the different departments. So with HR, human resources, some of the different things that they were talking to them about are talent retention, raising awareness around the issue, employee loyalty and trust, because if the employees see this in action, it's a real example for them. And also about it being HR paying more than just lip service to their own policies. So health and wellbeing policies, return to work, as already mentioned. In terms of operations, the real benefit here is that experienced staff are able to remain in their roles. So they're not having to draft in other people to cover who may not even know the role particularly well, or sharing the role with the remainder of the team and people who may well already be up to capacity. And it also presents a brilliant team building opportunity because there's a shared responsibility and shared experience of actually caring for an employee with cancer or the carer of somebody with cancer. On the legal front, it means that the company has a legal responsibility to support people back into work if they're cancer survivors, and this is a really practical way of doing it. And on top of that, there's also the department or the role that the employee actually works in for their day job. So this might include building in additional support to reintegrate them back into the workplace. So as you can see from the slide, working with cancer has had some high-profile clients. They've worked with us with clients from across different sectors, including professional services, facilities management, financial services, and also retail. So what we're now going to do is we're going to focus on each of the departments in turn and what benefits they may be able to offer and you could look to work with them on. So the first one is the Chief Exec's Department. So the Chief Exec's Department is where you go head for the top, you get the stamp of approval, and from there it's a lot easier to move on through the rest of the organisation. Also here is where you've got access to the senior management team. So you've got the board, that's where decisions are made, and they also at this level are aware of the different planning cycles. So selling your program directly to the chief executive of a business can save a lot of time and energy, and also the chief exec and the board will be familiar with the mission and the current priorities across the business. Many leaders these days are actually looking for ways to add value and deliver on the company's values. So if you're able to make a personal connection with a senior director, you may well be able to then plug in with the values and work with them almost directly. It's really important to research who are the chief execs and the directors of the companies that you're targeting, and we'll talk a little bit more about ways that you can do that later on. So moving on to the human resources department. There are so many HR related problems that businesses face. So, this is a real opportunity. So we've looked at one specific issue for working with cancer, but you may well be able to help with one of the other areas. So employee engagement, retention and productivity, you may be able to offer employees the opportunity to do something different. Volunteering days and pro bono input. So pro bono is where somebody uses a particular skill set, such as an accountant, with a social enterprise. So we've got another case study here, and this one is called Benefacto. So Benefacto knew that charities needed support in a variety of ways through volunteering, and they also identified that most companies have a corporate volunteering policy, which gives employees at least one day a year to volunteer. Whether it's an individual or a group, it can be quite tricky for companies and employees to actually find an opportunity for one day. So what actually ends up happening is that many days are left unclaimed, and that means that the companies don't reach their targets and that charities lose out on this huge potential of volunteering hours. So Benefacto spotted the gap in the market, and they provide a brokering service between people needing volunteers and so the volunteer opportunities and the employees and the different companies to set up volunteering opportunities. And so what they've also done is they've set up a really professional online dashboard. So a company creates an account, a record is kept of the volunteering opportunities, and they have a named person at Benefacto. And then when they need to report on their volunteering opportunities, the impact that it creates, they've literally got a dashboard and they just print off the various reports, etc. And then they can feed that back to the management team. So moving on to operations and procurement. So this is where you can offer services that help improve the logistics and operations of different businesses. So, for example, what operation parts of the business could you help with? So, as has already been mentioned, sustainable travel could well be one. Do you offer training, or perhaps could you offer a new insight or approach? Another thing to think about is, can you find the intrapreneurs within an organization? So intrapreneurs are the same as entrepreneurs, but they are located within a corporation. And these will be the go-to people, the shakers and movers. And if you can get one of those on side, it would be fantastic, because they can be an internal champion for your project. Also, in terms of operations, this is the area that they know is where the organisation works on a day-to-day basis, and it's also the go-to department for the practical stuff. So if you're working on a partnership, you've got the high-level sign-off, this is where you go to actually make it happen. And also, in terms of procurement, it would be really good if you could find out about their tendering process. So, for example, you may be able to become part of the supply chain and help rebalance that it's less of just the profit, and they start looking at the people and the planet as well as the profit, the 3 Ps. And then in terms of the tendering process, they'll be able to advise you on what this looks like within the corporation, and also to actually help you perhaps shape a tender and some advice on, you know, what you need to include in that. So I've got another example called Inclusite, and they actually offer website and online service testing from disabled user groups to ensure that services or information are accessible to clients. So again, a lot of companies will have the aspiration that their services should be accessible, and it may well be that actually it's a legal requirement, but they actually don't know how to make it happen. So Inclusite have spotted that opportunity and stepped in with that particular service. So moving on to the CSR, corporate social responsibility. So this is an absolute goldmine for social entrepreneurs. But again, it's good to understand where they're coming from and what the CSR professionals are actually looking for. So the CSR, what you'll find is that some businesses may have a dedicated CSR team. Well, in other businesses, the CSR function will actually be embedded across the company. So it's often, as I mentioned, it's often the CSR priorities for a business that are fantastic for a social enterprise to connect with. Questions to ask are, do they have a sustainability strategy, or perhaps have a look at their CSR objectives on their website? What you'll likely find is that different businesses will set different CSR goals. So, for example, you might have some that have prioritised zero waste, air pollution, or a net positive impact on the environment. And yet others will be looking more towards skills and education or investment in local communities. So what you need to do is kind of work out which of these you can align yourself to. And again, it might be that you could help them with being legally compliant. If it's something that they have to do, how can you help them do it and add value through that? And another thing is, you may be able to save them money, but even if you can't actually save them money, you may be able to add value so that you do actually offer them more. So, you may well be adding added value through the ethical approach that you take, and that's for something that's costing the same service that they're paying for, from a business that isn't motivated by being responsible. Another thing to think about is the cause-related marketing. So, for example, how can you help them solve entrenched problems that they're passionate about supporting? So I'm going to just mention a case study linked to the legally compliant aspect. So we have a social enterprise called IQEOL, and they're described as a we company. Now, this is a technical term, but essentially what they do is they help dispose of electrical equipment, which is actually a legal requirement, as it's not allowed to go into landfill. So they offer additional impact, because what they actually do with this is that They create community benches with any leftover material. They repurpose and donate IT equipment to charities in the UK and also to schools in Africa. And so all of this means it's added value, which the companies can then communicate back to their customers. So a question for everyone, of the areas we've discussed so far, what ideas does this bring up for you? What kind of solutions, services and products do you think you could offer a business? Kat, are you keeping an eye on the chat box? I'm sure you are.
Yes, I am. There's not. So if people want to add in any things that have come up so far from listening to Annie, then put those in the chat box, and maybe we'll come back to those in a minute. Annie, there's nothing there at the moment.
Great, yeah. So just moving on to sales, PR and marketing. Okay, so again, this is a really good department to head towards. There's lots of different ways that you can work with the teams here. They will be able to enhance their reputation as a business through being associated with a social enterprise. It may well be that you're able to look at doing some kind of joint promotion. For example, could you attend industry-wide events together to speak about your partnership? Or perhaps you could nominate yourself for joint awards. And these may be awards that, as a business without a relationship with a social enterprise, they simply wouldn't be qualified to put themselves in for. Another fantastic thing in terms of the sales is that you may well be able to access their database of customers and clients, but also you may well be able to offer them access to clients which may be harder to reach clients, which usually the corporate wouldn't be able to attract because there would be no direct interaction and the profile they wouldn't match up. So that's a really useful one. And then there's also that they can help you because they have a dedicated resource for the sales, PR and marketing, is that they can give you really practical tips in terms of, how to increase your sales, perhaps how to write a press release and how to do the on and offline marketing. And of course, you can also do joint press releases, etc. together. So another example of a really positive, social enterprise that is doing really good stuff is called bluepatch.org. And in essence, what they are is an online sustainable marketplace with they've got UK designed items, ethical fashion, eco products. But what really you really notice when you go to their website is that it looks so professional. They've really done a good job on their marketing, etc., and that in itself helps to sell the products that they have and is a reflection on who they are. Next one, please.
So back over to me then, Annie.
Yeah, indeed.
Fantastic. So thanks very much for that, Annie. So Annie's given you a really good overview there of the different functions within a business that you could maybe look and think about targeting, and we just set it out that way because we think it's an easier way to kind of think through where or who in the business you might actually target. And Annie will talk a little bit more in a minute about how you can do some of that research on finding individuals to connect with. So just in summary then, from what Annie said, what are businesses really looking for and why do they want to work with social enterprises? Again, there's actually very little evidence at this stage, certainly that we've come across, to know to what extent businesses are looking to work with social enterprises specifically. But businesses are always looking for new opportunities to demonstrate that they're better than their competitors, to be more innovative, or to deliver new projects and change projects to improve their business. And so all these opportunities are equally open for social enterprises. And it doesn't, when we started out Solutions for the Planet, a lot of the businesses that we went and spoke to, we realised fairly quickly telling them that we were a social enterprise didn't really mean much because they didn't really understand what it was. It wasn't until later down the line in the conversations that we really start to have those educational conversations with them about what the extra added value was of working with social enterprises, and whether they wanted to explore that across other parts of their business as well. So we were actually able to to kind of educate the corporates on who we were, but also what the social enterprise sector is, because that's what we were passionate about, not just about our organisation, but about the whole sector. And so even if they're not looking to work specifically with social enterprises or you at the first stage, you have an opportunity to get yourself on that platform and kind of fill in where those gaps and opportunities are, and really put yourself out there as an equal player in the marketplace. And we can talk about that if you've got questions about or concerns about whether you are actually can compete against some of those competitors, then and do ask those questions, because I'm happy to share my experience and examples of that. So, oh, it's a bit slow with my clicking at the moment. So how do you know if your offer fits what they might be looking for? So really you need to be deciding on maybe a sector or a type of business that you go for. So Annie was saying before with working with cancer, they kind of have targeted some key financial companies and kind of gone for those. It really helps. I mean, there's all sorts of different companies out there. It really helps if you kind of get a bit clearer about who you want to approach, what type of sectors or what type of business, what size of businesses are you looking at, and kind of really understand who that sector is. And like I said, with the construction, utilities and energy sector, we knew nothing about it. So we had to go to trade shows and conferences and get into that sector and start having conversations with those people about the challenges that they were facing. Just by attending conferences, we really picked up on that. Once you've kind of identified some of those businesses, you can then start to decide whether the business is actually an organisation that you want to work with. So the more you know about a business, the more conversations you have with people in that business, you can start to see whether there is alignment, both in terms of the things that you're offering, but also in terms of whether these are the people you want to work with. Are they actually aligned, or can you help shift their alignment to where you want to be? And I think that's really important as a social enterprise. You're probably very value driven, and so finding that alignment is quite key. And recognising that actually it's those individuals in a business, and particularly at the directorship level, chief exec level, that you can find those people. Do you have a product or service that actually solves their problem? So again, once you're having those conversations and in that space, and even just asking for meetings with people to understand where they're at, you can really start to see whether what you're offering can fit their need. So I can explain this one with so one of our partners, when we first started having conversations with, they had a disparate, they had recently had a merger. They were bringing disparate teams together from different parts of the country and different organisations with different legacies. So they really wanted to they had this value of a one team approach, and they really wanted to bring people together. They also were looking at how to diversify their talent pipeline and increase their profile locally as a local employer. So they had no sense that they wanted to be working in schools or in the community at this stage, but we were able to say that our programme would both enable their team to come together, because their employees would mentor on our programme and they would work together as a team to do that, and it was a space outside the business that they'd do that. They'd actually help improve, or at least long-term increase their profile in the local area, and also diversify their talent pipeline, because they were working with a number of different schools within a 5 mile radius of their head office. So they were raising their profile as a company locally that people could go and work for, and working with schools and young people and their families, sort of raising their profile as a local employer, but also longer term, having that long-term vision that actually they could help influence people to think about them as a potential employer for the future. The third thing then to think about is, what knowledge or unique perspective do you have that you could share or sell to them? Okay, and I think this is, we did a lot of internal work about what really made us unique and different, and also then looked about our competitors as well. So where we were working in the education space, there are hundreds, thousands of organisations doing very similar things to what we were doing in the broadest sense, but we were really clear about how we were different, and we really understood our competitors as well, and were able to kind of communicate that when we were speaking to businesses about what we did differently. And also, and I think I sort of touched on this a little bit, but does the business know that they have a problem yet? So as we started talking to more companies in construction, utilities and energy, there was a lot of high level discussions at the events we were going around the lack of skills in that particular sector, and concerns around an ageing workforce, and lots of people, 50% of the workforce retiring in the next 8 to 10 years, which is a big problem for the sector. We were able to use that knowledge with some of the other organisations that maybe didn't have that on their radar yet, but once we kind of posed that to them, we're like, yeah, actually that is a problem, and we need to be addressing that. So sometimes it's about posing a problem in a different way that they maybe haven't seen yet, and you could do that if you have a sort of an ethical product to sell to them. Maybe they haven't even considered that there are other alternatives, and you're that alternative for them. Or sometimes it's just actually educating them that there's a problem and they haven't even come across that yet. So how do you actually, I've noticed we've got some more stuff going on in the chat box, so I'm just going to pause for a little bit. And Annie, do you want to just summarise what's been going on?
Yes, so I've been busy having a chat with Ken and also with Fiona, just in terms of, so Catherine is looking towards kind of the luxury side with the travel and businesses, and then Fiona is actually doing they support their social enterprise support network, so they're actually looking in supporting social enterprises to get into companies' supply chains. So I was just asking Fiona if that was going to be sort of a consortium type approach, or if it's kind of, perhaps coming up with good practice, that side of it. And then Catherine was just saying that they have had some success with getting into the corporates, but that it's tended to be a sort of a happy accident more than anything. So what she says is, I'd like to be selling to corporate. Style and sustainability is our key thing. So the idea is that corporates can have a luxury product, which is also make a positive social impact. So she wants to know who in the business she'd like to target. So any thoughts on that, Kat?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things, Catherine, and you'll know this if you're already working with them. I think once you've got one client or customer, it's really great to kind of just keep that conversation, having regular conversations with them. So the more conversations you can have where you learn and understand how they're experiencing what you're offering, but also, talking around that direct thing that you're offering support with in terms of where else might you be able to add value and stuff. So always using those meetings as an opportunity for you to kind of draw information from them and help them understand what they're struggling with, what their needs are, and how you can benefit. And I like what you're saying. I'm really fascinated by what you do. But I wonder whether the sort of the luxury side of your brand is what they're looking for. And even if that's what you offer and that's your added value, that's great. But trying to understand how that meets with what they're actually looking for, and kind of maybe even talking about it slightly differently, thinking about even, I don't know. So I don't know much about transport and travel in terms of a corporate. So, but I definitely think there will be people probably on the procurement side who are responsible for, I know certainly the companies we worked with in the past all have huge contracts with companies who organise all their trains and planes and hotel accommodation. So it's not somebody usually.
Catherine's just added, read the point on the business knowing they have a problem. I don't think what I'm offering but it's a bonus for companies that are already looking into incentive/celebration trips. And it'd be good to package this in a way that makes it really appealing for corporates to use, basically to choose them as the preferred supplier.
Okay, so it's actually, so it's not their day-to-day travel and events and stuff, it's more this additional, so maybe like group visits, team building things, or celebratory types things that they might be organising. Okay, sorry, that's my misunderstanding then.
And Fiona also added about the work that they're doing at the moment. We're in the process of developing a bisocial directory for the area to cross-promote opportunities, and also looking into how we can facilitate social enterprises getting contracts with corporates through building beneficial relationships. So quite a lot of what we're kind of covering.
Brilliant. Okay, so just back to Catherine's point then on terms of those celebration trips and stuff. I think, again, although it might not be a problem in the business, and that's just the way I phrase it, it's trying to find out, who are the companies that the business is already using for those packages, and doing your research on those competitors competitors, understanding exactly how you're different. So what are the exact things that you do the same? What are the things that you do differently? And what are the things that you could potentially do in the future that add even more value, that are aspirational? And kind of packaging it in a way, and that's what I'm saying, like the importance of having those conversations with your potential customers to understand, well, why is it that they go with certain companies? What is it that attracts them to those? And also what's not being delivered for them, so that you can kind of use their language to describe what you do and the benefits that you could have. So I don't know if that's helpful, Catherine, but that's what I was trying to sort of explain in the previous slide, and also trying to make sense of what you do, because it sounds really interesting, but it's not something I've come across before. So hopefully that's still helpful. So packaging your program in a way that's compelling. One of the first things is obviously to do your research. We talked about this a bit, and Annie's just going to talk through some things that she's used or that can be useful in doing that research.
Okay, thanks, Kat. So I'm a great believer in using LinkedIn for research. So the main caveat with that is not everybody is active on LinkedIn. So, that do bear that in mind. So the first of all, just talking about research. So looking from the business perspective, research the business that you want to partner with. For example, what reports have they produced, any press releases of their work, and also things like what do they comment on in social media. So this is a bit broader, this bit. And then you've got an idea of what they're actually looking for and perhaps what their pain points are. And also try connecting with different people from across the business, so that you're starting to build up a picture of the business, gathering facts, and you can then use that to feed it into your proposal stroke pitch to make it relevant. And as with anything, expect some professionals to be receptive, and expect others who they won't get back to you for a whole variety of reasons. And then also try to develop warm contacts, and also use your existing contacts. So for example, I know that when Kat was working with Tarmac, Tarmac obviously knew the industry and was credible, and so they were able to introduce solutions for the planet to other relevant people that they could then set up, they could sell their services to. So just coming back to LinkedIn, if you've got the contacts, what you can often do is you can look at their contacts. So it depends on how they have their privacy settings, but some people have their contacts so that you can see them if you're connected to them. And from that, you can then actually identify other people that are relevant in the industry and sort of grow your circle that way. You can also invite, I know that LinkedIn says you need to know somebody, but you can often invite people, and you are able to add a note, and you'd be amazed as to how much you can squeeze into that note. You can put links in, shortened links and all sorts of things to make it relevant as to why you'd like to get in touch. And also, if you're a member of the relevant groups that are to do with the businesses you're targeting, you can often contact group members who they may not be first links for you, but because you're both in the group, if their settings have said that they will accept other people contacting them, then that's another way to make direct contact with people. You can also find out a lot about people and their interests by looking at their profile. You'd be amazed at the information that this gives away. So, as already mentioned, which groups are they in? Who do they follow? So, who are the influencers? And also, for example, what kind of charities do they support? So, it depends whether you're exactly what you're trying to hook into with the person, but there's lots of material there that you can use. And also, a lot of companies do have a company profile on LinkedIn. This is useful as it actually shows you who else works at the company, so you start to get some kind of a diagram, an organogram, if you like, of who's currently there. And also you'll be able to, if they keep their profile up to date, the company profile, you'll be able to see company updates to get an idea of what's going on. And also check the individuals' updates so that you can see projects and events that they've been to, perhaps what their colleagues are up to or other collaborators. And you'll start to see a pattern that they tag in each other, they'll comment on each other's posts, etc. So it's also in terms of trying to find out the business's need and or their pain points, it's really important to try and build up a picture of what the kind of language is that they use, which can sometimes be different to what we perhaps use, you know, in the social enterprise. So a good example of this is the phrase talent management, and this can mean different things to different people. So in one company, it might refer to fast tracking graduates in a program, or in another company, it actually means succession planning in terms of who's going to be, you know, the next director of the department. So just good to be aware of those things. Also, position yourself as an expert and also understand where your expertise is. You know, it's good to know how you're different to others on the market. So that's your unique selling point. As Kat mentioned, a competitor analysis, and then perhaps do a SWOT based on that. And then help the business to find the best partner, which may not actually be you, but again, you're showing your expertise in being able to say that. Over to you, Kat. Can't hear your audio, Kat.
Sorry about that. So I've been talking away with on mute. Smooth. What I was saying was it's really important to do your research, but don't feel like you have to wait, you know, 3 months to do a research block and then do the next stage. I'm really keen on kind of, you know, take the opportunity now, get out there, have those conversations, and just evolve as you go. And that's certainly the approach to Solutions to the Planet. We just kept having conversations, kept tweaking things, and kept adapting things as we went, and we're really clear about how we were doing that. So how do you actually then communicate? And there's been lots of questions, I think, in the chat and stuff around this particular issue, around how you make it compelling and communicating it as well. And what I really wanted to do was kind of workshop this a little bit. We're coming sort of towards the end, so I think we've got a bit of time. So if anybody's got a particular issue, or not a particular issue, a particular thing that they would like us to kind of think about how you would communicate it. I'm going to talk through the examples that we've had so far in the chat. But yeah, I think it's really about thinking how you meet with the employer, the company first, and kind of really get that communication in their language, and that you're not. So it's really difficult to explain this without an example, but basically you're not just going to tell them about why you think you're brilliant and selling yourself and your products. What you need to explain is an understanding that you have of their problem or their need. So what are they looking for, and explain that you understand that. And then you actually speak to how you deliver on that. So the change that they want to see, or the impact that they want to see, and how you actually make that happen. So whereas usually, particularly if you've gone to pitch for grant funding or investors previously, you may well have gone to pitch, you know, we do this and we're brilliant at this, and this is our expertise and this is our experience. That works, and I'm not saying don't do that, but I've always had a slightly different approach when we've gone to companies, and it's much more of a consultative approach, in that we're going to find out information from them, we're going to present that we have an understanding of who they are, and that we're pitching a solution to them for the particular issues, problems, challenges that they're facing. Whether they phrase them as problems or not, that's the way I phrase them, in that they're opportunities for you to kind of say, this is how we can solve or deliver on this particular piece of work. So okay, there's a couple of things, so I'll come back to those in a minute. So being really clear about what the problem is and understanding it from their perspective. You might present your perspective, because your understanding of the problem might be slightly different, and that's fine, you can have both of those things, but really understanding that you understand it from their perspective as well. Use the language of your audience, and that will help kind of express that you know kind of who they are and what they're doing. Trying to be really specific about what the deliverables are that you can and give them, so it's not sort of vague, and you're really specific, and also demonstrating that impact that you've had previously with testimonials or case studies and things like that. And it's a really good approach as well for actual pitches or meetings that you're having with them. I don't know if that's helpful, so do let me know if you've got further questions on that particular thing. And this is then just summarising how to approach and sell to businesses then. So doing your research is really key. Identifying the individuals that you actually need to speak to. And Catherine, I was saying in the chat box earlier that if you've had experience of talking to somebody particular in a business before, what's their job role? And then basically go and find that job role in loads of other businesses. And this is what we did at Solutions for the Planet, whether we used LinkedIn or we used our existing networks, or we went to conferences and asked, if often at trade shows, we would find that, it was the salespeople selling a particular product, but we would always ask those salespeople if we could take their card, could we email them and ask them for the HR director's contact, would they be happy to put us in contact with the HR director, because that was the person we needed to speak to. Lots of people would say no, lots of people would say yes. So don't be put off when people say no, it's fine, but it's not a reason not to ask the question. Particularly at those events where you've got all those amazing opportunities to have those conversations. Make sure you're having a meeting first to understand where the company are, to try and understand how you might map out your proposal to them, because your proposal might be slightly different for each company. So always, it's like going for a job interview, I suppose, trying to tweak it so that it speaks to them and their individual needs. Then draft your proposal. So we would always have a 2-page A4 outline proposal of our core offer, so we knew exactly what our core offer was and where we would negotiate or be flexible on, and that's what we would tweak for each pitch that we did. And then prepare for your pitch and practice. I can't say that enough, and I'm sure if you've done a pitch before, you're very experienced with that. Is there anything that particularly challenges or scares you about approaching businesses in this way? Because I do appreciate it's quite direct and it can be quite terrifying, and I was certainly in that camp for a long time when we started out at Solutions for the Planet. I'll just see if there's any chats at the moment. Okay, so we'll come back to that then. So then I was just sort of going through what that pitch process is, and we'll share a resource on this in the email that comes out after with the recording. But essentially, my suggestion of how you pitch and how we used to pitch to businesses when we got that opportunity was that we described the problem both in terms of how we saw it. So we were really interested as Solutions for the Planet about educating young people for a sustainable future, both how they could support and influence a green economy, but also how they could develop the sustainable development skills they needed to join that economy in the future. Obviously, that isn't where Tarmac as a business are interested in. They were aligned to it once we got that conversation going, but actually their priorities and business needs and the problem that they saw was that they didn't have enough people coming in, particularly with chemistry skills, to their business. They didn't have a diverse workforce in terms of Black and ethnic minority backgrounds, and their head office was in Birmingham, so it was a really key thing on just being present in the UK and being an international company. They wanted to increase their diversity on that side of things, and also, like I said, they wanted to be an employer of choice in the local area. So once we understood that, we were able to pitch to that and explain how our programme met those needs and focus less on our big vision about why we were doing it. We were able to bring that in later, obviously, in the conversation, but we described the problem in the way that they understood it. We summarised the solution to their needs, explained how it worked, would give a particular focus on how it would actually be delivered, and cover all the details in that. So lots of them would want to know the financials and what the outcomes would be, how many staff would have to be involved, etc. So we were able to cover all that. And then also summarising the change that would actually happen, so being clear about what is the difference from them working with you compared to working with somebody else, but also what's the difference that you do through your programme. I would really recommend that you try and keep pitches to under 15 minutes and probably around 5 to 10 minutes where possible. I think much more value can be had through discussions and the questions and answers that I had after the pitch. I think you can always give them extra information to read before and afterwards, and it's really about telling that story. So that would be my suggestions in terms of the pitch. And again, we'll share the resource, sending that out with the recording. And then just one other thing for you to think about is if you do develop a partnership, whether you're selling to them or building this more of a project-based partnership, then there's other things that you can think about how they could help you with. So we actually developed really strong partnerships where they really were investing in our business, and the relationships we built with the individuals, so the directors of sustainability, directors of marketing, the chief exec sometimes in those businesses, they were really keen to support us because they recognised that we were a new organisation, but they believed in the vision that we had, that we were trying to deliver. And so they would provide all sorts of other support in terms of, we would speak to their finance director to help us with thinking about planning out our income strategy, longer term, how we would work with their partners and their clients. And we'd get help from the legal team around our contracts. You know, we were inexperienced in that, and they were happy to kind of explain what a contract between us should look like. Obviously, we had to go and check that out externally as well because they had a vested interest in the contract. But we got lots of support, and then we also got lots of marketing support as well. So there is additional value in return on the partnership side that you can get from the business, which I think is worth thinking about and thinking once you've established those relationships, what is it, how could they help? They often would host events for us. They would cover some travel and accommodation costs that we needed sometimes to go to meetings, all sorts of things that were added values for us and that we were able to get from those partnerships. So we've kind of talked and had a whirlwind tour through all of that. We have come to the end, and we're now going to sort of allocate about 15 minutes or so to answer any final questions or answers, maybe talk through or workshop some specific things that you're thinking about.
So do feel free if you need to leave, because we did say it was an hour, and thank you. But if you want questions and answers, please ask us.
So I'm just having a look. There are some. I've been able to do some demonstration projects working with corporate.
Okay, so yeah, just tracking back through that. So Daniel's been, what he wants to do is work with corporates, looking for ideas to help them solve the problems they face. So many of the issues facing different departments and companies, what he focuses on, but he's not been able to get into the right conversation, and he uses his blogs to help him find people that he doesn't know. He's given the link. And he said he started some conversations. So that was as far as we went. Thank you, Divya. Thank you very much. And then also, Catherine mentioned her contact that she had was corporate finance manager, and that she thinks she ended up taking on organising a celebration for her team for a deal they won. She's committed in 2018 to keeping in touch with her. I made that bit up slightly, but what she's asking is she wants to get more involved in employee engagement, and she's not sure what she can offer specifically that will be of most benefit. And I think again, there's a whole big, it's a whole big one to look at and unpick.
Okay, so Daniel, first of all, I'm just going back in terms of what you said. If you just type in, Daniel, what your actual mentoring program what does it cover? And I know you said it works with disadvantaged young people in high poverty areas and stuff, but what do you actually do in that mentoring, and what kind of are the key themes and stuff? Because I might be able to help think through who to target or what types of businesses to target once we know that a little bit more. Oh goodness, there's 4 new messages at the bottom. But to those that you've got to go, we will follow up, so do keep in touch. Employee engagement, there's a whole thing, all sorts of different things, and really it's about building those relationships so you can understand what employee engagement means to different people, or if you have a greater understanding of this, whether that's to do with their health and well-being, whether it's to do with what perks and benefits they have, maybe it's extra volunteering days, maybe it's an opportunity to do a project within work that you facilitate. It can be all sorts of different things, and I think it's really about being creative about what that employee engagement could look like, but it's really hard to do that without any sense of which sector you're working with or what type of business, because without having those conversations to understand what they're looking for, each business is very distinctly different. So Daniel, just waiting to see if you can just put a bit more detail around.
Okay, Catherine's got to go in a minute. So she's going to do some research and have some conversations. Yeah, okay.
Brilliant. Thanks, Catherine. It's lovely to meet you.
Do you just want to go on to the slide with our information on it? Just to...
So if anybody wants to follow up with us, you can engage Annie at either-differenceva.co.uk and myself at shareimpact.org, and then you'll have these as well when we send out the presentation afterwards. So do get in contact with us. It'd be great to follow up with many of you, and please feel free to email us with any follow-on questions or things you're struggling with once you've tried out some of the things we suggested. Bye Fiona and Becca, I think it was. So thanks very much for coming along.
Yes, we will be sharing, Fiona. Thank you, and thanks for joining us.
And yeah, if there's no other questions, we will probably leave it there.
Do you just want to run through what we're going to be sending out afterwards?
Yeah, I can do. So we will also send out, we've got 3 infographics. So one around how to pitch perfectly to corporates, and then 2 on connecting with businesses, covering a lot of what we've gone through today with the slides and the information. We've got a couple of links to the podcasts that we've spoken about. So there's some organisations that we've referred to. I did share links in the chat box, but I've also done podcasts with some of those. So Barbara working with cancer, and also Inclusite. So you can have a listen to those podcasts if you want to find out a bit more about those organisations. We'll obviously share the slides and the recording. And yeah, we'll also be doing this follow-up workshop later in the year, so watch out for an email about that if you wanted to join and actually come along and meet some of those corporate partners that you might want to have a conversation with.
Fantastic. That's us done.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Annie.
Thank you.
Speak to you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.